Let's take a look back in time at late 19th century America. In this time, many reformers rose up to help fix America's problems. Now that everyone was done fighting each other, this is a time when people started making reform movements, which helped change America into the place it is now. There were many reforms, such as the temperance movement, the religion reform, and the one I'll be talking about now, the women's rights movement. Now imagine you are a woman in the 1800s. You would mostly stay at home whenever your husband went out to go to work in newly made offices and businesses. You mostly had time for cooking, cleaning, and caring for children, and maybe some church. With your husband at work, you became lonely and bored after a while of staying home and going to church to pray. You realized after a while you had a lot of influence with the church. After this realization, you started to wonder why you didn't have any power anywhere else. These thoughts inspired the works of Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Sojourner Truth, and Susan B. Anthony, the key people in helping this movement get off the ground. Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who were also abolitionists who met at the 1840 World Anti-Slavery Convention in London, the three had set up a women's rights convention and a whopping 200 women in attendance. One of the contributors to this convention was Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth stepped up for both abolitionists and women's rights. She gave a wonderfully made speech in the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention in New York. The speech was called "Ain't I a Woman?" and it talks about how most women were treated like fragile flowers, were carried over ditches and puddles, and given the best place around. She asked the question of why she wasn't being treated like that. "And ain't I a woman?" she asked. "Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man, when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery, and when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman?" This speech provoked lots of thoughts from both people fighting for the abolitionist movement and women's rights. Many thoughts like, if she can do what men do, then why can't I? And how are we so much more different from men that we have to be treated like second class? And she's no different from a white woman, so why isn't she being treated like one? These thoughts provoked a lot more people to get involved, and it gained the attention of many all over. The movement ended in a shorter workday, but women were still not allowed to vote. However, as you may know, the fight for women's equality is still being fought to this very day. Feminists are still protesting, and people are still battling it out because there are still people stuck in the past about women's rights. But people like Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, Lucretia Mott, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton will always stand up to fight.